Hey everybody, today is pretty cool. I'm a little upset. I'm a little excited because I've got a guy on the couch. He's from across the ocean, and we've been arm wrestling a little bit. You're going to know him because he is a prolific artist, photographer. But I guess what most impresses me is he's figured out a way to have a business, an amazing business, and he's a philanthropist. This guy mixes these two, and I always talk about that on my show. You guys know it. We talk about missions and companies, and so many companies need to be more mission based. Well, he's figured this thing out, and he's doing it at an amazing clip, and he does so much for charities. And the money he's raised is just phenomenal, and it's exciting, makes me feel good. The only problem is Europe, they won. They won the Ryder's Cup this year. They came into our house, kicked our butt. It was frustrating. So all morning long, we've been arguing about the Ryder Cup. I'm so proud to have David Yarrow on the couch today.
Very nice to be here.
Yes.
I love Dallas, and I love the energy. I love the sort of pro-business mindset and the lack of virtue signaling that we might see in other parts of the country.
Yes.
My team of, when we travel around the world and we see our show itinerary, the one place my team in London never wants to miss is Dallas.
Yeah, so, it's a special place, Texas. And I find that as I travel around the world, people, for some reason, they love Texas and the cowboy thing. And, what you've done is you've, like on steroids, brought the cowboy back into Texas, right?
I think you flatter me. I think there are a lot of people that have brought the cowboy back into Texas before me and alongside me. I hang on Taylor Sheridan's coattails a little bit on that front. The cowboy is the most enduring, emblematic symbol of Americana. If it wasn't the cowboy, what would it be? Would it be McDonald's? I don't know. I think I think there's a big gap if you're trying to find the emblematic symbol of Americana from the cowboy to the next thing.
Well, it's what I see is it's just really romantic and it's sexy. And although the real life was not sexy, it was not romantic, it was dirty and dusty, and it was dangerous. But what everybody sees as a young kid growing up watching Westerns, and that's what I thought. I was going to go be an actor, and I was going to go make war movies and Westerns, right? John Wayne, he was the guy, right?
Yes, he was the guy.
And so, but the reality is a little bit different. But I like the different. I want the Hollywood romantic, sexy cowboy playing the guitar by the fire, right?
We were filming in a place in West Texas, which is real quintessential cowboy land. And we had quite a few cowboys who appear in TV productions or whatever, but they are authentic cowboys. And we had some ladies over from London, and we had a dinner party for 12 people, and one of the girls, who's very English, said, "David, why on earth are all the cowboys still standing?" And I said, "Because they're waiting for all the women to sit until they will sit down, because manners to them are the most important thing. So until that final girl over there finishes her espresso martini and sits down, none of the cowboys are going to sit down, because that's just innate within their character."
Well, it's so fascinating that you spotted that. And I guess that's what makes you such a great artist, right? And a director of this content, because you notice the little things. Because a lot of people don't. They just go, we love going to Texas because people are so polite.
I never understood. I don't know. I'm my own biggest critic. But I guess to do what I do, you have to have a visual sensibility. I don't understand why anyone on an airline would book the aisle seat if the window seat's available. Because what a great way to spend your day is to look out the window of an airplane.
And see
when
the
I'm flying,
beauty.
when I'm flying from London to Los Angeles, and you go over Greenland, and then you go over Nunavut and places in northern, and on a clear day, looking from 35,000 feet, you can see little communities. And I'm the guy on the spectrum that rings for the stewardess, and she comes over thinking I'm wanting a drink, and I say, can you ask the captain what the name of the village is that we've just crossed?
Wow,
So
yeah.
that's I'm a little bit on the spectrum like that.
No, and I, the greats, so many of the greats, they're on the spectrum. You get that. There's something that, and it's so important. As I rescue dogs on television, and off television as well. It's my passion.
Yep.
And nothing makes me prouder, though, than pairing up a family with autism and with a dog, because I've seen it change. And there's the spectrum. That's why they call it the spectrum, right? So you got all different kind of functionings on the spectrum. But I've done so many episodes with these kids, and the parents don't know how to handle the situation, because many kids that are deep in the spectrum, they can't hug and they can't touch. But when you put them with a pup,
Yep.
they can hug
Breaks
and love
down.
them. And I've watched it, kids go from suicidal to actually now running their own doggy daycare and shelter, and build a phenomenal business, that incorporates now the whole family. And you watch those transitions and you go, oh my God, it's just phenomenal. So I regressed here a little bit, but it's pretty special to have that trait. And I've watched so many people with that. Well, probably 90% of our tech CEOs are somewhere on the spectrum. When you see these guys.
I would have thought so, yes.
Yeah, for sure.
And I had the fortune of taking some pictures of Jeff Bezos recently, and
Wow.
In Texas. And actually, I found that he, of a man clearly of enormous intellect and work ethic, I actually found him to be disarmingly normal. And he sat down with my son for about 45 minutes in the middle of nowhere in Texas, humming tequilas and talking to my 22-year-old
Wow.
about life and business a little bit. My son, who decided not to go to college because most UK colleges are crap these days. You just drink and end up with a big overdraft. So he said, Dad, I learned more in that half an hour than I would have done in 4 years.
I mean, what a moment for him that he'll never, ever forget.
I identify as a father before a photographer. It's funny how just because you do something that's maybe marginally different, people think it consumes your life. It doesn't. It's just a job. And like you, we have other responsibilities. And to me, the best part of my job is meeting people that I keep on pinching myself and thinking the whole thing's a big bluff, but to meet some of the people that I have met.
See, that's what I love about you, this humble guy. And so let's talk about those beginnings, because I think it's important. Did your mom and pop, they're passed now, but did they get to see the success that David Yarrow has worldwide?
The embryonic part of it. My father was an industrialist. He built ships, military ships for the Navy. Tough. It's like Glasgow's a bit like Pittsburgh in a way. It's an industrial city, and shipbuilding was the heart of Glasgow, as opposed to steel in Pittsburgh. But he didn't think photography was a proper job. He thought banking was a proper job. And it's funny, now the two Scottish banks both went bust in 2007. And the one thing that Scotland has always punched above its weight in is creative arts, music. A lot of the bands you'll listen to were Scottish. A lot of the writers, architects. We have, digressing a little bit, but probably the lead art gallery that specializes in photography, perhaps in the world, is a gallery in Palm Beach. And they can't afford to have the wall space to represent a huge number of photographers. And a lot of the photographers that people buy, of course, are dead. But they have 9 photographers that are still alive that they represent, and 3 of them are Scottish. What are the odds of that?
What?
So we do punch a little bit above our weight. But my dad didn't quite believe in me. There is nothing more energizing than having someone that doesn't believe in you.
Seriously.
Because then you just double up. It's not his fault. He was just old school. My mum did believe in me, but didn't live in the real world. So it was perhaps the perfect combination that I had one parent that did believe in me, but didn't live in the real world, and the one that didn't believe in me did live in the real world. So it was a kind of nice combination.
So let's, since we're speaking about moms and pops, and let's go back to a 10-year-old David Yarrow. What were you doing? Were you the shy kid that kind of kept to yourself, the in-pained artist, or were you the guy that ran the playground?
I was probably midway between the two. You know, growing up in Glasgow in Scotland, it's a city of about 1 million people, and half of Glasgow is Protestant, and the other half of Glasgow is Catholic. And the trade unions, were organised so that if you went to the wrong school, you couldn't work in a certain place.
You're kidding me.
No, amazing in 2020, isn't it?
Wow.
This was 1980. But Glasgow had football, or soccer as you call it, was an integral part of daily life in Glasgow, and there was one Protestant side and one Catholic side, Celtic and Rangers.
Where did you fall?
Well, I didn't understand when I was 8 that I had to support one side. I'm Protestant, but the Catholic side, Celtic, were far better. And when you're 8 years old, you just want to support the good side.
That's right.
So football was everything. It was life there. So I was obsessed, and I still am. So I was a lover of sport, and the camera was just a facilitator in a way to get me entrance to a lot of sporting. So I was going when I was.
Did you play as a young boy?
I was never good enough. I was never good enough at anything. I think the only sport that and it says unfortunately quite a lot about my personality and my fitness, but the only thing I was any good at was pool. Like
you could hustle.
I was a hustler. The camera gave me license to go and watch football. Man, quite often, even in the early stages of my career of covering football matches, there was a story which is true, that my first big assignment was in the World Cup in 1986 in Mexico, when I took the picture of Maradona.
The picture.
But Scotland were playing in Mexico City against Uruguay, who were a decent side.
Now, what year was this?
This is 1986.
And how old were you?
20.
Okay.
And I was working for the London Times, and there was a moment where the Scottish centre forward missed an open goal, a sitter of a goal. And back in the editing studio, the Times, of the sports room, all they could see was the striker with his head in his hands, and me with my head in my hands rather than with my camera taking the photo.
Oh my
God! I was basically a fan of the camera. And
did you know you wanted to do this when you were 10?
Not 10. I think 10. And by the way, I think photography is one of the few things, as you age, as we both know, there are a lot of miserable things about aging. The only good thing about aging is I think you should become more emotionally intelligent. You make more mistakes. You understand people more. You become a better version of yourself.
Truly.
And photography is about emotional intelligence. So you should become better. When someone says to me, you must meet my son, Richard, or whatever, he's a really talented photographer. And I don't want to be miserable about it, but it's very difficult to put those two words together. He's a very talented young photographer, because it's almost like an oxymoron. It's not through the fault. And so when I was 18, I wasn't a talented photographer. What does that actually mean? I knew how to use the camera.
Yes.
But I think it's so I'm a little bit doubting of when those two words are put together. Talented young photographer. I'm sure there's a few around, but when you're growing up, I think it's a very tough thing to be able to be that good, because you
Right.
got to grow into
You
yourself.
gotta have life, and I think about that like with musicians and writers, right? So these there's a lot of young kids making a lot of money writing music,
Yep.
right? And these songwriters, I'm going, they don't know life. They don't even know what they're writing about. You know, it should be these older seasoned guys and ladies that are writing this beautiful music. But it's interesting because so many young writers. Now, there's some great older writers. Don't get me wrong,
Yeah.
but man, some of the great stuff comes out of these younger times. And maybe is it risk? I don't know what that is.
I think you came to a show last night. Thank you, and
Of course.
I probably had, I don't know, 25, 30 pictures in the gallery. In aggregate, those 30 pictures were taken. If you put them all together, were probably taken in 1/10 of a second, putting them all together. So I'm telling 30 different stories in 1/10 of a second.
Wow.
And storytelling through a camera is a challenge, because you've got that. It's just a split second in time. And for it to tell a story is therefore a little bit of a challenge. Whereas
Truly.
you can be a young Willie Nelson with a notepad and being asked to write lyrics. And of course, he was exceptional. But I think at the margin, being able to write a song in a Taylor Swift way or whatever, at least you're given the time to do it. Whereas in a photograph, you're being asked to tell a story in 250th of a second.
I mean,
And
truly.
that can be quite a challenge. And it's one that, by the way, I fail miserably often to be able to do that. It's like people turn around to me all the time and say, "Oh, David, look at all this work and very impressive." And I say the big difference between me and a golfer is if you play a bad shot, 60 million people on television see it. I take bad photographs the whole time, but no one has to see them. No one ever
You
sees
get
them.
to pick the ones.
I get to pick.
that are
I can be
special.
very selective. And by the
Yeah,
way, that
but-
sometimes is only 5 or 6 a year.
You know what's fascinating, and speaking of your art, and let's dive down into really a piece of your art because I'm fascinated. So you were a working photographer in the news side, right, or the sports side,
Yep.
which you loved, but then you got into the financial side of business.
Yes.
And do you think that was because of your pop, or was it something? Was money just becoming more important, or did you love working
No, I think
and managing money?
It's a good question, and obviously something that I, in retrospect, think about an awful lot. It was 2 or 3 things converging. First one was that I did the Olympics in 1988, the Winter Olympics in Calgary in Canada. It was the Winter Olympics where everyone was looking at an East German ice skater called Katharina Witt because she was quite attractive.
Yes.
And then we had a very bad...
You were a lucky guy. You got to.
Oh, I wasn't allowed to go and look at her. I had to photograph Eddie the Eagle, the British ski jumper that went about 2 yards.
So you were there with Eddie the Eagle.
I did the Eddie the Eagle show. I wasn't
Stop it.
I wasn't allowed anywhere near Katharina. The weird thing about press photography is something like an Olympics, and I've got an awful lot of respect for the strong sports photographers, but very few sports pictures stand the test of time because they're reportage. They're headlines the next day, and they're normally documenting a decisive moment.
Right.
The problem is if you go to say a college football game here and you've got 100 photographers around the pitch, it's all with very good cameras, all taking 12 or 13 frames a second. It's very difficult to get something that's unique and authentic. And I remember even in the Olympics way back in 88, I thought, here's a great picture I've got. Before you knew it, there were 7 or 8 German photographers that had exactly the same picture.
And they're racing to get it published first.
And then a week later, we have a saying, I don't know whether you have it in America, today's news, tomorrow's fish and chips, because we wrap fish and chips in newspapers.
Yes.
And it was the time that Oliver Stone had just directed Wall Street. And it was the heyday of everyone wanted to be Gordon Gekko or Bud Fox and live that life, fast life. And I had an economics degree. And I was offered 2 jobs. I was offered a job with people that are now Getty Images. You'd have heard of Getty Images. And then I had a job offer from a European investment bank. And the salaries were exactly the same. The salaries were around about 24,000 each. And to the astonishment of many people, I chose the investment bank.
Interesting.
To the pleasure of my father, who thought that photography was just no way to be spending your life. To the chagrin of my mother, who wanted me to follow my creative
Artistic side, yes.
But in retrospect, it was the best move that I could have done because I was so young. I didn't put the cameras away, but I learned. And I often go on record as saying, now moving forward 40 years, I've met people from all walks of life, people that are running campaigns for LVMH or Adidas, the big consumer non-durable brands. I've had experience of working with an awful lot of different industries. I know bankers are generally hated, and the kind of after 2007 and 8, the kind of heads I win, tails you lose.
That's exactly right.
If you gamble and you're wrong, you'll be bailed out by the taxpayer. If you gamble and you're right, you're going to earn an awful lot of money. I understand why the man on the street finds that asymmetrical risk incredibly irritating. But if you put 20 people from JP Morgan in a room, I think you will find an awful lot of common sense in that room, and loyalty. It's not the most exciting of jobs.
Thank you for saying that, because I panic putting my money over there sometimes.
Yeah.
And these guys really know what they're doing because they're making a lot of money.
But I always was gonna. Do you remember in Jerry Maguire where Tom Cruise has this epiphany? That sports agents should represent less stars, so he writes this mission statement.
Oh, of course!
Great Cameron Crowe movie. And he puts it in, and then he gets fired 3 days later.
Yes.
So I wrote my mission statement.
You did not.
Yeah, I did in 2010, and my mission statement was how photography is going to change forever. It was about 7,000 words, I think, and I got a lot of shit for it because I was still at that stage working in investment banking, and
were you inspired by him
by the Tom Cruise
movie?
One?
Yes.
Yeah. Well,
or did you?
Do you remember in that?
That's the power of movies. It changes.
Cameron Crowe was excellent. The way that he got up and he started writing, and then he went to the photocopy place in the port, and then put it in. It was a lovely sequence.
Yeah.
And I just started writing.
And
the genesis of this was that I think I might have mentioned it last night, but Steven Spielberg is clearly a hero of great storyteller, and so I was obsessed with Jaws. And my first big obsession in terms of photographing something away from sport was great white shark. But I'm a shit swimmer, so it was never going to be an underwater picture of a great white shark. It was going to be a great white shark coming out of the water.
Oh my gosh.
And people were going, you're absolutely crazy, because you had to fly. The best place those days to do it was in a place called False Bay, which is an hour's drive from Cape Town. And there's a thing there called Seal Island, and the great whites would come in the South African winter, June, July, and they would breach out of the water to get the force. They'd see the seal, but they'd come flying out.
Seriously.
But of course, because no one knows, if you're on top of the water, how do you know that there's a shark? So what you had to do was just focus on the baby seals. You're on a boat, the boat's rocking up and down, and your hand, you get exhausted because, of course, the moment you put your camera down, something's going to happen.
Boom.
And you're flying 12 hours coming back from London, Cape Town. I did 30 hours of this in the water because they only breached at dawn as well, for reasons that no one really knows about. Really? And my friends were thinking, why don't you just go and see a therapist, or I don't know, but this is
just to get that shot.
And I finally got it.
So people don't understand the commitment, right? It took to do that.
Never quit.
Or the
That's gotta be
insanity.
one of the things. Never quit.
Yeah.
Never, ever give up. And so the picture went around the world, printed everywhere. Front page, a lot of them, all around the world. And I got my check 4 months later. And I opened the check. And I think my check was something like 11,000 or something like that. And my head sunk into my hands because it cost me 20,000 to take the picture. So I thought, this is the world's worst business model, because I've taken this picture and I've lost 9 grand taking the picture with all the airfares,
Oh, yeah.
captain's fees, and working with marine biologists, whatever. And then a guy from Houston, Texas called me up and said, "Are you the kid that took the photograph of the shark? Because I'm called Jaws and I want one of them in my office wall, because I want to put the fear of God. My name's Jaws." And sorry about my accent. And he said, "How much for one of those pictures?" And I didn't. That was not the way people were looking to monetize photography, not through fine art. So I didn't really know what to say. So I said, "Well, maybe $7,000 to deliver it to us." And he went, $7,000? So I obviously thought I'd overshot. I said, "Well, I'm sorry, sir, but the frame's quite expensive." And he said, "No, I'm going to get five of them." And that's when the penny dropped, that one person could, by buying it as art, pay me more than all the magazines put together around the world. So that's what my paper was on.
The light bulb went off.
The light bulb went off.
Dude, that's impressive.
And Getty, the problem is everyone is a photographer in 2025.
It's worse, today. That's ridiculous.
If
They're all a movie maker, and they make TV, and they can do the whole thing, and I go, calm down.
In the time I'm in Dallas, more pictures will be taken around the world than the whole history of film photography, because everyone's got a mobile phone and whatever.
Yeah.
If I asked 10 people that at lunch today, "Here's a lump of clay, I want you to make a pot on a wheel," no one's going to be able to do that. If I give them a lump of wood and say, "I want you to carve an owl out of this piece of wood," no one's going to be able to do that. But if I ask them to take a photograph, they're all going to think they've got a decent chance. So it's the most
interesting,
accessible art form in the world.
Yeah, and you think competitive. But so how do you get that cream to rise to the top? And really, I believe in so much by accident, we happen upon things, right? That make this, all of a sudden it happens. The light bulb went off. Ooh, it could be fine art. It's a game changer. Now, really, before you answer this, because this is something important, I want all of you guys to right now go to your computers, open up your phone, because we can do that now. Just on our phone, we can Google whatever. You got to see this picture of the great white and taking that baby seal. It's kind of sad, but it's a moment. It's life, right? It's life, and it's how life happens. But it's unbelievable when you look at that shot. I would have never imagined you made all those trips back and forth, waiting for life to happen.
Yeah.
Sorry,
it was a long shot. What do you call it in America? A Hail Mary. But I mean, there was another moment to me. This is very left field, but one of the most instructive TV series that's ever been made, in my view, was Breaking Bad.
I thought you were going to say To the Rescue.
And that one. And closely followed by To the Rescue. Very similar storylines as well. You could see your distribution business is going well.
Breaking Bad. Wow.
So Breaking Bad for 2 reasons. Firstly, the filmmaking was groundbreaking in terms of how immersive it was. Wide-angle lenses, very close to people's faces, flipping around the conventional way of photographing things. But the storyline was also very clear to me that his business went from being a nice little money-earning hobby to something that became an empire. And the switch happened from when he went wholesale and he got other people to do the distribution for him, taking a margin cut, but opening up. One of my heroes who I've never met and I would love to have photographed was Warren Buffett. And Warren Buffett had a lovely saying the best businesses are the ones that do well while you're asleep. And I think that's quite an instructive saying, because
Yes.
if you don't go wholesale, and a lot of photographers in America who specialize in landscape or urban photography or wildlife, they vertically integrate the food chain. So they take the pictures, then they have their retail store in Jackson Hole or wherever it might, Aspen or whatever, and then they're selling their own stuff. That's a very challenging business model, because it's all about you. You're talking about your own work, and you're either in the store taking pictures,
Yes.
whereas, and of course you're keeping 100%.
Yeah, but you eat what you kill, and that's it.
Yeah, and you got no one else. We have an acronym in the UK, which I'm sure you have in America, called Fig Jam. Do you know what Fig Jam is?
No.
Fig Jam stands for "fuck, I'm good, just ask me." So,
I love that.
and
Can I use that?
Yes, but I don't like that, because I actually don't like talking too much about my pictures. I think that's about third-party advocacy. It should be third-party people
absolutely.
talking about my work.
Yeah.
I want to talk about everything other than my pictures. I actually get embarrassed and start scratching the back of my neck. I prefer to talk a frivolous conversation about anything else.
Kind of like what we're doing.
Yeah.
We're not going too deep into those photos.
Not saying, oh, and this is a really good one I took last year. I'm very. That's someone else. That's someone else's job.
That's narcissism too.
Yes, and that person might take 50%, as I think the guys in Breaking Bad took a bit more than 50%. But that 50% is a very valuable cut to take, because when I go to bed, or tomorrow afternoon when I'm watching a very important football match of Scotland, there'll be 50 galleries around the world talking about me, whereas I don't want to talk about me at all. I want to watch the football match.
Absolutely. All right, so you touched on something that was fascinating, because you talked so much about the camera, right? In Breaking Bad, and how they shot it, how that director and that the cinematographer set those shots up, right? What is most important to you? What do you believe is most important, the writing or the cinematography?
In a show like that, I mean, let's take.
It's a trick question. I'm just kidding, but everybody has their own philosophy. So, but I'm interested because I know your art.
For me, it's the package. If you take, let's home in, since we're in Dallas. Let's home in on Taylor and Taylor Sheridan.
Right.
If you ask people in the UK, what would they score Yellowstone? Yeah, it's a long way from home, Yellowstone, and we're not cowboy culture so much. Yeah, decent series. Love the girl. She was badass. What did they think about 1883? Interesting story. All that, the sacrifices people made in the push west, Final Frontier. 1923. Yeah, we like Helen Mirren, she's one of our own, Harrison Ford. All these kind of got the public's attention. And then Landman came out, and the UK appetite for Landman was way above those three other series.
Really?
Because we're an oil-led, energy-led industry, and Billy Bob is fantastic. But it was the writing and the cinematography. You can't have one without the other. And I think that series...
Interesting.
And I'm biased because I've got to know a few of them. And I'm in awe. It's much better to be dragged up by people that, and his writing ability, his work ethic, he just sits at home and writes. I said to him, actually, when do you write best? Because I know I'm worst between probably 2 o'clock in the afternoon and 4. That's my time where I don't tend to work. I'm good at 6 in the morning till 10, and I'm not bad from 4:30 till 8. So those would be my peak periods for creative processing and sort of iterating.
Interesting.
And my worst period is 2 to 4. So I said, Taylor, What's your best period for writing? It goes 2 to 4.
Interesting. All right, so maybe I'm screwing up because mine's at midnight to 4 a.m.
Is it?
Yes.
That's curious.
I'm completely off the Richter scale, and mainly because I have to also run a business.
Yep.
And I'm a banker during the day, and then I have to because this is a business, right?
Yeah.
The money has to keeps us running, and so the art for me, which I love the most, and that's the frustrating thing. Dick Clark gave me a great gift, taught me the business of the entertainment business, but he screwed me over because I find myself having to stay up to midnight to work on the art, and the rest working on the business. When my friends that are just actors and they go and they show up and they get a paycheck, I've got to worry about I have to write that damn paycheck. But it's kept me in business. So I'm not the greatest actor on the planet. I was lucky enough to be able to make a couple shows. I think you got a
formidable skill set.
Well,
I know that I have 5 different jobs in what I do. Over and above being a father, I'm a boss to people. I've got to provide a career for them. I've got to incentivize them, encourage them, lead them. That's number 1. Number 2, I've got to do events like I'm doing tonight, 400 people in Dallas or whatever, and be a showman and tell stories. So that's the second job. Third one is I've got to be a businessman and look at the return on invested capital of everything I'm doing. Fourth one is to be a creative. And right now, I'm trying to work out how many longhorn cattle I can get into a field in the middle of Wyoming.
Oh my God!
And you go from that, and you go from discussing cattle arrangements to talking about amortization of capital expenditure.
Yeah.
To then. And I haven't even mentioned the camera yet. And the camera is almost like the final. The last 5 years, our average amount of filming in a year has been 89 days. We know that number. So 89 days has been our average amount of filming. So what's that mathematically? That's about a quarter of the year. And people say, well, what do you do with the rest of your time? You go, you're kidding. I haven't been home since the 25th of August.
Wow.
So 3/4 of the year, I haven't got my camera near me.
So those guys that go, I'm an artist. I take photos or I write or to be successful, what is the key? What do you see the key is? When did you find that magic to go? Because at some point you just want to take photos.
I think that question, which is a short question, always deserves such a longer answer. I'm a great believer that luck does play a role. But there was a racing driver, Mario Andretti, and Mario Andretti has a quote that I plagiarize shamelessly, and he said, desire is the key to motivation. That's true, but it is the constancy in the commitment to the pursuit of excellence. Now, that if you take that second line, what I like about that is it's not saying you're good, it's saying it's the constancy in the commitment to trying to be good.
Yes.
Which is very different.
Fascinating. Okay.
The pursuit, not that you are. I think I'm profoundly average a lot of the time. I am so scared of boring people, being mundane, doing the same stuff as I have done before, being unauthentic. And I think it's good to have that worry, to have almost a kind of phobia of stagnation, of not being creative. What really irritates me sometimes is people turn around to me and they say, and I'm sure you've had this as well, they go, David, when's, and I don't know whether they're referring to it financially, because I've not got a huge wealth. When's enough enough? When's enough? When? But they don't say that to Rory McIlroy. They don't say it to Rory when he's practicing 200 bunker shots on a Monday morning in the pissing rain. If someone came over to Rory and said, Rory, when's enough enough? I don't think you'd get a very polite response to that question. But I get it. I don't know if you get it. Say, well, when are you going to go?
It's the commitment. because these guys that just go to a job, right, and they're the armchair watchers of football,
Yeah.
right? They're not willing to commit to hitting 200 bunker shots before 9 a.m.,
No.
right? And so that's the difference. And the commitment that you've made, right, to your art, your business, the biggest pressure is when you have, you're taking care of people because you control their livelihood and their families.
Yep.
And all of that, you just put all that on your shoulders and go, yeah, I don't just take pictures. There's a lot to this thing, right? The David Yarrow machine that has to function.
Yeah, I think if I got married early in life, and this marriage failure rate of working in investment banking and working those long hours and being kind of one-dimensional in your whole thought processing. We had 2 kids fairly early on in our marriage. And before you knew it, I was employing a lot of people, not seeing anything in my wife. And we went through that period, and a lot of couples do when, they always say when you have 2 children, it's alarming the speed to which the father falls to the least important person in the house very quickly.
I've been there, right?
And quite rightly, she had enough of me. And the weird thing is now, 20 years after we got divorced, we're kind of back together, and
I love that. Yeah, because the reality is
I was happy in myself as well, which is an important part of it.
Yeah, no, truly loving it, being good, comfortable with who you are.
But let's imagine that scenario hadn't played out, and I meet someone and they say, David, what about we go on a lovely cruise around the Greek islands for 6 weeks? Everyone that works for me should quit, because that's not going to be a very good 6 weeks. B, I'd shoot myself on the boat. I'd have cabin fever. My idea of hell is to be on a cruise ship or a boat doing nothing for 10 days. I couldn't cope with it.
I can't do that either. And my wife, she gets so mad at me because I plan vacations around work.
Yeah.
And I have to trick her a little bit, because I go, honey, we're gonna go over to Germany, or we're gonna go to the Bahamas, or we're gonna go, to Montana, and I go, oh, well, there's a little rescue over here that I have to shoot something, right?
Yeah.
Or we're gonna go to Bentonville, Arkansas, and it's gonna be a great vacation.
Yeah.
Well, I gotta go see
Crystal,
Walmart
you gotta
for
go
a
to see
minute.
gotta go and see the Waltons, and that's an interesting place.
But she's put up with it for 25 years, so that's surprising.
Crystal Bridge is in a hell of a gallery there, actually.
Oh, really?
Yeah, the Waltons have put so much money into the art, and
They truly have.
It really is a corporate town, that strange old place. But my son, who works for me, and you met last night, he's going to be far more successful than me, which pleases. We were talking about that earlier.
Of course.
But he does occasionally give me a bit of tough time, in that I don't differentiate between a Saturday and a Monday, or a Sunday and a Monday. And he said, Dad, you do understand there's a thing called a weekend. I said, yeah, well, it's just another day in the
When
week.
you're self-employed and you love what you do, there's not weekends or holidays.
The only difference to me between a Sunday and a Monday is you get less incoming emails on a Sunday. But what
true.
a great opportunity to put a towel around your neck and just go and write and think.
Well, yeah. You scared me. I thought you were saying hang yourself. But yes, I got to stay focused on the good side of this thing. You talk about your son, and this is so big because he works for you. What do you want to give him? What's the most important lesson you can give your son right now? And what do you kind of put in your mind? Okay, I got this growing up from my pop and my mom.
I think to me, it's Tommy. Some of that we had a great. You touched on it early on. We had the privilege of really being part of the European team for the Ryder Cup, and we stayed with them at the hotel. And
you dastard prick.
I know,
but
the American.
Is that a good
but
European term?
What was good for me was for him to be with, and really were. He would come down at 4:30 in the morning, and because you had to get to the course early and stuff. And Tommy Fleetwood, who's a delightful guy, and Tommy would go to my son, Cameron, did you sleep well? And Cameron would go, Tommy, I don't really think whether I slept well is really the issue here. You're about to tee off in front of 50,000 New Yorkers. Did you sleep well? But for him to see 12 people that are elite sportsmen and be kind to him, normal, leave their ego. That is a great lesson in life, that you can be a Tommy Fleetwood or a Justin Rose or Rory McIlroy and just be normal. And I'm not saying that doesn't necessarily happen in NFL or British football, but I think one industry that is in the public eye where, by and large, the people that are at the top are thoroughly rounded individuals is golf.
Yeah, no. It's they're very respectful, and the game is respectful, and I think it cries that, and for that I want to apologize, because America really put a black eye.
I'm not sure,
and it was very frustrating. No, I hated seeing that because there was no reason for that behavior at all, and it was frustrating.
Well, if you want, because I was there, I'll tell you what the European view on it was. And I get this from the caddies. If you want to learn anything, speak to the caddies. They're the shop steward, and some of them are delightful. Is that they knew it was New York. They knew that you could get whiskey on the course from 9 o'clock in the morning. They knew it was going to be rowdy. It's New York.
But it's still golf.
But the banter was lame. The humor was very, very lame. It wasn't of the highest cerebral quality. It was just
right.
And we get it because in British football it's quite an intense atmosphere, and there's
it's
much more
wild.
It's much rawer than your NFL because you don't have away fan sections. And British football, it wasn't long ago that a lot of fighting and deaths and stuff.
Truly.
So
how did it calm down? That's a good question.
Anyway, in our culture, they didn't think it was too bad. It was a couple of occasions where, if they have a go at their wives, and that's unacceptable.
Yeah.
You would be the same, I would be the same.
Of course.
They can say whatever they want to me. And if you look, actually, whenever they're having a go at Rory, the next shot he hit, he normally just nailed it.
That's right. And, but the Scotsman...
Yeah. Bobby McIntyre. He's not quite house trained yet.
I love it, but the culture too of a Scotsman, and it's you guys really. I mean, in Texas we have our thing, but you guys are so much more fun. I mean, today we're sitting here having a cocktail, a bourbon.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
No, it's fun.
I didn't say. But I love it because I can do that, and I can blame it on you. Sorry.
Scots have had a long history and the Irish of good comedians, observational humour, having a laugh at themselves a lot of the time. We're a nation of only 5.5 million people.
See, we forget that.
Yeah.
That there's not a large country.
And it's got its problems. We gave the world golf, we gave the world whiskey, we gave the world the TV,
we gave the world best things,
and we gave penicillin, I think. But our days of invention are slightly behind us now, and we have to survive on what we've given in the past. But which is tough because I think you should always look forward rather than looking back.
You have to.
The weather.
Are the young kids leaving, or is the education system there?
It's I mean, we've got 3 or 4 of the oldest universities in the world, as you know, like St Andrews is from the 15th century, and I think a lot of Americans clearly go to St Andrews to play golf for $10 or whatever.
My wife gave me that approval to go.
There you go. But they did a thing recently about the least attractive nationalities in the world, men and women, and I think it was Vogue magazine ranked countries in terms of the aesthetic qualities of the people.
That's a thing? Somebody would rate that?
Yeah, I mean,
That's
I'm
so
glad.
bizarre.
Anyway, so you can imagine so Sweden is flying high at number one, and then after
Those bastards.
then Norway's up there, and Estonia, and there's quite a lot of that kind of up in the Baltic. And then you go down the list, and you go through Thailand and India, then you're getting right down to the Eritrea, and then second worst was New Zealand, and then worst was Scotland.
No.
I sued them. I said, "How dare you say that?"
Wow. So what is Vogue even? Who cares what Vogue
Yeah,
is, for God's
they
sakes?
don't. I mean, they have no idea clearly what they're talking about.
Clearly, they have no idea. They came there and to see everyone and just drank too much in the pubs
They always used to say
and went blind.
a nice compliment. A compliment to someone in Scotland is nice tooth, because
The one tooth that's
one
left.
tooth is left.
Oh my gosh. Well, I've been all over the world, but I've never been to Scotland, so I'm
You've got to sort
really
that out.
excited to go.
I'll come and look after you. And,
Will you
I
please?
can get you onto Muirfield in a heartbeat.
Don't say that.
Yeah, my
Don't
brother's-
just throw that out easily.
My brother's lives 1 mile from the course. The thing about that part of the world is it's quite provincial. They've got some great golf courses, of course, and your president. And I won't get into politics, but I think he's done a great job in Turnberry and up in Aberdeenshire. Put a lot of money in both areas, and the golf courses are highly regarded. But in this area where Muirfield is outside Edinburgh, they live in a goldfish bowl, and so you can imagine North Korea could have just launched a missile at South Korea, and my brother would go, "There's a little bit of disquiet about the pin position at the third." I go, "There's a missile about to land in South Korea." I think Douglas has been a bit cavalier in the pin positioning today.
I love your brother already. So he's a golfer. How many siblings do you have?
I've got him, and
You have a brother?
yeah,
You have
I've got one brother, and
any sisters?
no, I had a brother that took his life.
Oh man, I'm sorry.
And I'm over, but he was always. I think let's not go on to mental health issue, but I want my photography, and maybe this accelerated the process, to remind people what a beautiful world we live in. My photography is about making people happy, not taking pictures of refugees on a beach in Greek islands. I want to remind people what a joy it is to live on this planet, and how happy and how lucky, and live every day. Bob Redford did the foreword for my book, and I got to know Bob, and when he passed recently, it reminded me that none of us are getting out of here alive, so we got to enjoy it.
You've got to enjoy it. You know, Jimmy Buffett should have
Yeah.
wrote the foreword for your book, because that was Jimmy.
Yeah.
You know, it was, you got to be happy, and he lived every day just
I'll tell you a funny story about that, because I think one of the most uncompromising people I've ever worked with in America, but in a good way, was John McEnroe. And that was part of the reason I wanted to photograph John, because he's John fucking McEnroe.
Well, yes.
And
by saying he's that, John fucking McEnroe.
you
can't
exactly.
just say John McEnroe.
You can't.
If you know him, oh my God.
So we were shooting in New York, and I thought we did a great job, actually. And I saw one of his friends the other day. I said, "I'm really worried that John doesn't like me at all." And they said, what do you mean? And he said, "Well, I took this picture, and we did well with the picture." And he said, no, that's just John fucking McEnroe. Anyway, the best story about him, you mentioned Jimmy Buffett, was that, of course, they were tight. He'd been ill during the coverage of the US Open, and so he'd missed a period. He came back onto TV when it was at the semi-final stage, and I think Coco Gauff was in the female semi-finals, and then the men's semi-finals were kind of a bit dull in terms of because it was before this new rivalry between the Italian and the Spaniard involved.
Right.
So they said, "John, I'm glad to hear you're better. What do you think about the men's semi-finals?" And John F.A. McEnroe said, "Actually, I don't care. I want to talk about my friend Jimmy Buffett, who died yesterday, and that's John McEnroe. It's such
That's
a classic
game changer
yeah,
right there.
yeah.
Because
I want to talk about Jimmy Buffett.
yes, yeah, wow. You know, and I lost a good friend a couple days ago, Cleto. And Cleto was the band member for Jimmy Kimmel.
Yes, of course.
And I mean, that dude he was an amazing human being.
What
Never
happened?
Said
Did
no.
he get cancer? Or?
No, he had some other health issues,
Okay.
liver issues actually. You know, I've probably known him 25 years, and there was never a time, no ego, there was never a time that guy wouldn't do something for me. And I say it like that because, and I'm talking about my kids growing up. I used to take, when they got in the sixth grade class for each one of my boys, we would go to California. I'd take the whole class and go on the boats in the marina. And then there was one day they got to come to Hollywood. So Cleto would go, come on, I'd take him to Warner Brothers and everywhere, and, you know, go behind scenes, you know, and on the sets. But every kid loved Cleto. We'd always go to Kimmel, and before the show, and they'd get to go on the stage, and Cleto would pull out that sax, and, you know, he was just unquestioning, whatever you want, you know, as a friend. There was another guy, and we talk about celebrity, right, and egos, and I got to meet some of my heroes. You know, Dean Martin was one of my heroes, and the Bob Hopes. And Dean was he had all the opportunity to have an ego. But we would go to dinner on Friday night, little Italian joint in Brentwood. And it would take 5 hours because every person would come over, and he'd go, well, sit down. And he would want to hear their life story.
Yeah, it's lovely.
And very few people are like that.
That's nice to hear.
You know, but Mac, that's pretty special when he goes. Yes, we're on broadcast television, and but what I want to talk about, Buffett touched so many people, you know, in that music, and so your brother, that's the golfer, and what does he think about what you do and this, because it comes with fame, obviously, and everything you're doing and traveling around the world, and does he ever get to leave the island, right, his little world?
Yeah, he sadly he got Parkinson's about 10 or 12 years ago, and that for me has been very humbling to watch him in his fight. And he still plays golf, and if he gets his medication right, he'll beat me.
Wow.
And so I think he's my hero rather than me doing anything special, because to get that illness, which is a miserable one, because you don't die of it, you die with it. And
how's your brain going through that?
Yeah,
is it go bad, or is it just you know what your body's doing?
It never gets better, but he fights and tries in the same way that your celebs that have it, like Michael Fox, whatever. You just have to never give up. When the medication's right, it's all right. But I look at him, and we've tried to contribute as much to Parkinson's research and in our philanthropic side as possible, but no, he's far more of a hero than I am. I've just been lucky enough to stay healthy and follow my passion.
And when you go back and you get to, I mean, it's got to be tough, because our family is all we got.
Yep.
So you lost a brother, which I'm so sorry.
But equally, you know, I got two incredibly healthy kids who enjoy the very best of life, and they've had some, you know, they've had some special moments. And if you deal with famous people, I think fame, and when I did the Tim Ferriss show, we talked a little about how fame's an amplifier. And if you're a good person and you become famous, I think you, by and large, just become an even better person, because you're not letting that fame affect the fact that you're a good person. If you're an arsehole and you become famous, you just become an even bigger arsehole. So to me, fame is just an amplifier.
You know what's special for me? Because my kids, whether they liked it or not, are thrown into my world,
Sure.
right? And the greatest gift. So I got into dog rescue because I used to host the SPCA telethons with Betty White.
Right.
Wonderful, wonderful woman, but taught me the importance of animals in our lives, right? And the best gift I could have ever given my children, they were my boys, as young kids are out doing rescues and taking these little souls and giving them a better life, right? And watching that, and I've watched it change their life as they got older. And I go, oh my gosh! I mean, it brings tears to my eyes to see that effect, because they've been around, huge stars, and I always tell them, I say, look, the Dallas Cowboys, it's always been our team, right? Even though I lived in Los Angeles so long in New York, but I go, my son's godfather is Spud Webb, the slam dunk champion, big NBA guy, and it's Uncle Michael Irvin from the Cowboys. I'm going, you can't really talk about it because most of the country's not going to understand, but they're so humble.
Yep.
And that's just what watching our children, and I know you watch your son, because he's working with you.
Yep.
And he's an amazing, delightful, smart kid, because I've gotten to spend some time talking to him, and you got to be proud. And those moments watching him interact with people.
Yeah, that's most important things in life.
Because I do like to talk about business and life, and we did touch on some of that. You're creative of building content, right? Of taking that snap photo. It's very much like I do in making a television show or a movie. We'll spend a couple $100,000 shooting an episode. Your stuff is a production. Mm-hmm. And so what turned on that light bulb? What made you make that choice where I'm going to go build out all these sets and build out this moment? Because very few people do that. Photographers wait for that, like you did, going to get that shot of that great white, where when you can actually make it happen.
I think there were some pictures this summer that went slightly viral of the Masai Mara in Kenya during one of the migration crossings. And let's imagine that your family, and of course here in Dallas there are a lot of people that go to Africa on safari or sometimes hunting, whatever. Imagine you're saying to all your neighbors, so exciting, we're going to be in the bush, and you have visions of Bobby Redford and Meryl Streep out of Africa. Yeah. And then you take the long way, that flight over to Johannesburg, and then you go north, and you've been traveling for 24 hours. You get to your lodge exhausted, and then the next morning you got your guide and your Jeep, and you go to the river. Imagine how disheartened you are with the 600 Jeeps where you are, because you had this idea that it was going to be serene and tranquil.
Yes.
And one thing that we've seen because of the growth of the Indian middle class, Chinese middle class, and middle class everywhere, is that safaris have become commoditized.
It's attainable for people.
Yes, over tourism. In exactly the same way that if you are trying to capture unique moments around the world, it can be dispiriting if, for instance, I've spent a lot of time photographing polar bears in my career, but imagine you go to 82 degrees north and it's cold and it's been a lot of travel to get there, and there's 16 other photographers right next to the polar. So for me, one of the most important word in art is authenticity. There's a big gap between that and the next most important word, I think. The problem with documenting the natural world is that authenticity has been lost. It is. I'm not saying I was copied, but what I was doing was easy for other people to try and do their own version of it, if you like. So the market became flooded. I remember Art Miami is the big art fair, of course. It's 2 or 3 weeks away in Miami, and it's our biggest week of the year. There are not going to be many pictures of wildlife there because it is seen by the art world as just being overpopulated.
Interesting.
The great thing about building your own set is that the only camera going to be there is going to be yours.
Wow. Yeah.
And that is kind of important. So, and also because the amount of money involved, it takes most of the others out of the market.
They can't go do that.
We're work in progress. I'm work in progress. I'm learning all the time. But what we do know is that when something doesn't work and you spend $250,000 on something that doesn't work, it's miserable to do that. With something like Netflix, when they do a show, let's imagine something like The Crown that was very successful. Well, that after the promotion, whatever, they're in for about $100 million.
Oh yeah.
But what they do in their accounting is that they amortize that $100 million over 8 years, because they'll say this is because we've invested in The Crown that we're going to keep subscribers. We're not. That's up to them if that's how they kind of. If we spend, as we are next week, spending $300,000 next week, we take that through our P&L on Monday morning. So
Yes.
that's that's more than I pay my staff. Most of them. So if you spend $300,000 and at the end of the week they say, "So David, how did last week go? Have you got anything to show us?" And I say, "Well, not really. It didn't kind of work out." Well, that's quite a big hit. So
that's tough.
It focuses the mind. On
wow.
Those are the pressure days.
Yeah.
And actually, I don't actually enjoy them very much. I enjoy them at the end. And we did.
Interesting.
We did. I think I can tell this story on your podcast. But we were shooting in North Carolina about 2 weeks ago, and the weather was just dreadful. It's very rare for me to scrub a day because the weather's so bad. Because if it's snowing, that's actually quite good because you can make something out of the snow.
Sure.
But if it's just torrential rain and it's just dark and it's tough to film. So day off, doing nothing to do up in the woods in North Carolina.
It's costing you a lot of money.
Yeah. So I was fairly miserable. It was a kind of low point, not knowing what to do. And there weren't many places to go and drown our sorrows. So the next day, we got a break in the weather, and I got what I needed to do in 45 minutes. And
Wow.
And I said to our driver, I said, "That's great. Let's just hit the road. Let's get to Atlanta, and we'll go and have a night out." And I'm very naive when it comes to gummies and mushrooms and stuff like that. It's not something I'm used to or familiar with at all. And he said, "David, we can relax. Take one of these." I said, "What is it?" He said, "Oh, just give you a little bit of a bump, and it's just a gummy or whatever." I said, "Is it legal?" And he says, "Well, it's sort of legal or whatever." Yeah, so I put it in, ate it. Didn't feel anything for 4 hours. Then we go for dinner at this smart club in Atlanta, and I thought all my teeth had fallen out of my mouth.
Oh my God!
So they're coming over, "Mr. Yarrow, is everything okay?" And I go, "No, I've lost all my teeth."
It kicked in about 4 hours later. Oh my gosh, that's wild. How fun. Well, that's what we have here. We you go to places like the Carolinas. There's some places around the Carolinas that you're not sure what you're going to get.
No, I mean, I'll tell you, if there was an alien invasion, there's some few places up there I found 2 weeks ago that the aliens aren't going to want to go anywhere.
Yes, no, there's some dark wooded,
yeah. You don't want to get lost.
Interesting people back in there. So we're going to wrap this thing up. A couple important things, because I rescue dogs, and we love what we do To the Rescue, and one thing that we're missing now that I have like the guy on the couch, one thing you're missing is there's not any really great shots of a dog rescue guy and his dogs and something special. So while I have you in this position where you can't say no, I want you to get those wheels turning. And we got to do something really fabulous about.
I will. We did something at Mar-a-Lago recently for the big dog rescue people. Do you know who they are?
Of course. They've been on a couple episodes.
Yeah, and we raised a couple of $100,000 that day. So And I'd never been to Mar-a-Lago before, so that was quite an interesting,
Yes,
day.
yes.
But no, delighted, of course.
Yeah, actually, they did a fundraiser for me at Mar-a-Lago
Oh, really?
as well. Yeah, and raised a lot of money and was a big event. But yeah, so you don't have a dog today because you travel a lot, but we're going to figure out at some point how to get you a rescue pup because it's so important. It's just, I can't stress it enough. And I started this pet insurance company to further our mission along, and this pet supplement company. And, we give more of this stuff away than we sell to shelters because we want to make sure those pups are getting the right nourishment. And our pet insurance company, we make sure that single moms that can't afford to keep a pup in the house, that they can. We don't want a burden of a veterinary bill to handle that. So those are part of our big missions. And I want to just make sure everybody, when you come home and that little puppy's wagging that tail, give them a minute, look into their eyes, because that's what they need from you. They give us so much. We just have to understand how important that is. I got to thank our sponsors, Texas de Brazil, the best food in the world, actually. 65 locations all over the world. Have you been to a Texas de Brazil?
No,
man?
but I'm going to take it away.
No. They just more meat than you can ever even deal with. They just keep bringing meat.
Excellent.
And this is fun for you. So one of our other sponsors is Club Champions. They fit golf fitting, right? They have 150 stores around the world, and they do so much for us because I love golf. And so I said, you guys got to come be part of this show. But it changed my life when I got my golf clubs fitted for me.
There you go.
And I did it on a TV show.
But you're also good at it already. So
well, no, but
you don't need it.
It changes everything. David Yarrow, thank you so much,
Thanks,
my
mate.
friend. This
Thanks,
was a blast.